If you want to learn how to gain insights you can act on and solve business problems with data, all while building a data-driven culture at your organization, sign up for Pragmatic Institute's new course, Data Science for Business Leaders. Find out more at pragmaticinstitute.com/data.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sierra, and I'm the Director of Admissions and Program Services at the Data Incubator, and we are a fellowship, scholarship, and placement company. We promise you an excellent info session today that will be led by Erica Thompson from Randstand RiseSmart, and Erica will be showing you tips and tricks for creating a standout STEM tech resume. So Erica, if you'd like to introduce yourself now.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I'm Erica Thompson. I started my career in math and finance, and I lead RiseSmart's North American resume team. Okay, thank you everyone for joining us here today. I'm so happy to be talking about this topic. RiseSmart is a leading global talent mobility solutions provider in the human capital management space. That's a mouthful, I know. Essentially, we provide an array of career services for job seekers through organizations like TDI, with a primary focus on the Fortune 500. This is something that we do all day, every day. We stay on the cutting edge of everything that's surrounding a job seeker. So we are credible thought leaders and recognized subject matter experts on every area of specialization that we touch, including personal branding, which is what we're talking about here today. So the key to standing out in today's highly competitive job market is really simple. Just tell a compelling career story that positions you as the ideal candidate for the job. Really simple. But I know that that's far easier said than done. So our agenda for today is to give you a process on just how to craft such a document. Let's go. So developing a resume or CV, we will use these words interchangeably for this presentation. Creating a STEM-related resume, it can be very intimidating. It doesn't have to be. We want you to understand simply how to put your best foot forward on paper. And in doing so, you're going to focus on your academic achievements, your skills, your successes, and your accomplishments that demonstrate that you are the best person for the job. Okay, and in addition to all of that, it's very important to make sure that your writing is clear and concise, and that it's focused on the needs of your audience. So you will be tempted, very tempted, to write for yourself, write to demonstrate what you want to say, what you want to demonstrate in a resume. But it's really important to understand who your audience is and to write for your audience. We're going to talk more about that, but I want to just kind of establish that up front. Okay, so there's kind of a formula for writing an impactful resume or CV, and it's really the cross-section of your strategy, the content, and formatting. And those are the key areas that we're going to focus on here today. So a few tips and challenges before we get started. We want you to know the tasks associated with your own roles that you currently have. You want to discuss what you have done in a way that it just doesn't focus on your job duties. So it can't be too responsibility focused, too duties focused. We'll expand on that. Your resume, in order to really stand out in a crowd, it needs to be accomplishment focused. And I want you to be aware of the difference between using just current terminology and jargon. You want to be mindful of that so that you are, again, appealing to your audience. And we will show how your audience is actually 3 different entities. We'll talk about that. And I want you to always demonstrate the business impact, the outcome that you have achieved in your resume. Your work is, and you are more than just the skills that you have. You're more than just the technology that you've and expertise that you've acquired. So we want to highlight your skills beyond just the technology. You're more than a programmer or a mathematician, so much more. So what other skills that make you uniquely you that will build on your competitive advantage? Let's bring that out in your resume. Okay, and then lastly, for the formatting aspect, I'm sure you've seen lots of resumes. Your resume doesn't have to be boring. And we'll talk about some bells and whistles that you can bring into a resume to really make it aesthetically pleasing. Okay, let's talk strategy. I feel that when you start with your resume strategy and really kind of going through in your mind what you're going to need to appeal to your audience, once you get your strategy down, everything else pretty much flows very quickly and easily. Okay, so what you want to do is do some research. And you will note, please, that the work that you do here in building your resume will help you even in building the next step for your career and also in the interview process itself. So this is, it can be really introspective work, but it will only benefit you now and down the road. So you want to start by doing some research on the career path that you are pursuing. Look at job descriptions, look in LinkedIn at folks who actually have the role that you'll be pursuing. Look at what their responsibilities have been, look at their background, just do some research so that you can really understand what the market is reflecting. We will talk about this. I really want you to use something that's always readily available, and you don't even have to interact with someone initially, especially if you're shy, and that's using job descriptions. You can do a lot of research through job descriptions. Next, we want you to stand out in this competitive market. We're going to talk about that even more later, but it's essentially your quantifiable accomplishments and anything else that gives you a competitive advantage over those who are similarly qualified for the roles that you're seeking. Those are the things that you want to focus on, okay? Again, what makes you uniquely you? And then we won't talk a lot about this. I do want to draw this in, and that's the power of your networking. It goes back to that first item in your research. You can always reach out to people who are in the field, or in the position that you want to be in. You will always get the benefits of your networking. So start now, build those relationships. You never know when those networking opportunities are going to pay off and when you can help someone yourself. Let's look a little bit more at strategy, okay? I want to talk to you about and go through some of your strategy fundamentals. First off, the resume document that you create must be, in today's market, applicant tracking software friendly and search engine optimized, okay? By search engine optimized, what I mean is that you will, your resume will have to appeal to the employers by means of the content and the text that you include. It has to appeal to the job description. So if a role is asking for you to have project management and business intelligence experience, and nowhere in your resume do you ever include those words at all, then it's not search engine optimized. And by search engine, I mean both, the Google and its competitors, but also within the company, because they're using a database and they have their own search engine that will typically be searched using a Boolean search string. Okay, so you want to make sure, we will talk about this more, that your resume is search engine optimized, okay, through keywords and the content that you include in your resume. And then an ATS-friendly resume refers to the very format that you use. So there are different characteristics in your styling that you can include in your resume that can make it virtually invisible in an ATS system. Today's applicant tracking software systems, that's the acronym, can see so many things. 10 years ago, it could only see a Word document. It could only read a Word document formatted in a certain way. Today's ATS can see so many things. However, it's a system that is costly. And even in the Fortune 500, most companies do not update their applicant tracking software system for 5 to 7 years because it's costly. And they take the attitude, especially in HR, if it's not broke, why fix it? Okay, so that's one aspect we want you to always pay attention to. Search engine optimization, and make sure your resume is ATS friendly. The main way to do that is make sure it's a Microsoft Word document. All ATS systems were built off of the Microsoft Word coding. Then in your resume, so in the formatting, you want to make sure that it's the reader can quickly skim your resume. Never use large blocks of paragraphs. People hate it. It's not easy to skim, and you will find that the lead gets buried in the details. So ideally, you want to use, I'll skip below, you want to use prioritized bullets within your resume. You want to include a well-rounded summary that previews your accomplishments. So this is really the marketing statement that tells who you are, and it's going to toot your horn for you. One thing I will say, it's very important that you leave humility and shyness at the door when you're developing your resume. It is so important that you are able and willing to really promote yourself, talk about your successes, because your competitors are doing so. So that's very important. Now, again, I just talked about, you want to include prioritized bullets in your resume. By prioritize, I mean you can start off with a broad description of your role and then narrow down the accomplishments. Your resume is really just to start the conversation, okay? So you're going to include your resume is kind of a snapshot of the best of your career history. It is not a full career biography. So it's merely meant to kind of start the question. It will prompt the interviewer to ask more. Tell me more about how you saved your company $6 million in labor costs, okay? And then you get to go into your hero story, okay? Your resume, it needs to be easy to find. Again, that really refers back to that ATS-friendly aspect. Your successes need to be easy to find on your resume. And you can do this through your wording. We just want to make sure that your duties and your accomplishments are distinguishable, okay? Let's move forward. We're moving into the content section. Okay, so I like to use a lot of, metaphors and analogies. So we want to look at your resume as creating kind of a well-balanced meal. The appetizer is going to be kind of that beginning section of your resume. You want to start with the title, a compelling summary, your technical skills, any keywords that really help you to stand out, okay? Then we're going into the real meat of the resume, and that's the professional experience. So who likes salad? Avoid word salad. What this essentially means, again, we want your writing to be concise. We want it to be clear, relevant. When I say relevant, we're focusing on the most recent years of your career, and we're focusing on the career history that's most relevant for the role that you're moving into. So let's say you spent your college years moonlighting in a department store. Okay, you don't even need to put that on your resume. Yes, it shows some work experience, but it's no longer relevant for your career direction. And then don't go overboard on the dessert. Okay, make sure, again, the relevancy of these different areas and make sure that it gives you a competitive advantage. In fact, that's the litmus test. For everything that you include in your resume, ask yourself, is this just information or does it give me a competitive advantage? Another food analogy, let's say you're in the market for a wedding cake and I'm a baker. You don't really care that I also make a delicious pumpkin spice latte. You don't care. You want to know that I can craft a delicious cake with that and can build it and that it can be beautiful. This is what you, as my employer, this is what you want to hear from me. All the details that go into making a cake for you. And so I want you to kind of think about that. Anything that doesn't, especially when I'm charging premium prices, I want to make sure that you understand just how beautiful my cakes look and how delicious they are. But everything else is extraneous information that doesn't help you as the employer in making a decision to hire me. Okay, so let's talk more about the appetizers. Okay, the summary section, and this is an area where I said earlier, I want you to really utilize job descriptions. Use them as a reference and a starting point to build even your summary section, because the job description will outline what the employer is looking for. And you will match your own skill sets to what the employer is looking for, truthfully, of course, and then be sure to let them know you asked for this. Yes, I have this. This is how you begin to position yourself as their ideal candidate, because your resume answers a job description, not just submitting your resume, one size fits all resume in the open job market. You're crafting a resume on a case by case basis that really, it's like a puzzle piece into a job description with your version of the resume. Okay. So I wanted to take a look at how we might analyze a job description. So this is just a job description found on any job aggregator, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, and looking at their qualifications, what they want to see from a software engineer. And I just went through the job description and I began to highlight the hard skills and some of the things that they are looking for in the resume or in a candidate. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to look at job descriptions and analyze them, highlight different skills that you can determine that they're looking for, and then match your skill set to what your existing skill set to what they're looking for in a candidate. And then you'll want to, so we've highlighted all of these. And then let's just take them out and build our own just little area of bullet items of what we can tell that they're looking for. And then we can analyze our own skill sets and say, okay, am I this? Do I have this? There are many areas where you can spread this information throughout your resume. Right now, we're focusing on the introductory paragraph and perhaps the keywords, but you can look at this and determine, okay, the skill sets that I have, what I want to promote in my summary section, and then how else can I use this information in crafting my resume. So what I did is I took some of those very specific words from the job description, and you don't have to do that. You don't have to be quite so specific, but you want to include some of the keywords to demonstrate that you have this skill set, okay? And so I just built the beginning, because we would want to be more detailed here, but I just built the beginning of a introductory paragraph that hits on some of the aspects that they were asking for in the candidate. And then I looked at some of the other words in there, and those are some that I could reserve for my keyword list that I would include in the resume. Let's see where I am in time. Okay. And then we're looking at a data scientist job description, and I would do the same thing. Start to pull out the keywords and the key skills that you in your educated eye would see that this company is looking for. And then you start crafting in your own mind how your skill sets fit in with what they're asking for. And this is just an extension of that job description where they list their primary functions that they're looking for. And so I just bolded instead of highlighting, just to make it easier for you to see just some of those areas where I would look at the job description, pull those areas out as what they are looking for, and prioritize them as well in terms of what they're seeking, and then make sure that my resume speaks to what they're looking for. Now, here's a secret. Every company knows that they will never get 100% of what they're looking for in that job description, and they're really not expecting it. I would say that if you have 75%, then that's when you know that you should apply for the role. Okay, so boil it down. If you just kind of eyeball it, don't go further than that. Just eyeball it to see, do I feel like I have the majority of what they're looking for? Then that's a role that you should search out and or apply for. Okay, we're still looking at the appetizer, and we want to look at the technical section. Here we want to focus on the relevant technical expertise, okay? The programming language, languages that you have, any type of technology, it's great to list it in this section. I will say that you have to protect yourself against dating your skill sets and yourself in the technology section. Here's an example of what I mean by that. And I'll just take a productivity application, the Microsoft Office suite. Okay, if I want to demonstrate that I have expertise in that in that application set, that's all I'm going to write: Microsoft or MS Office suite. We don't have to include every backwards version through 95 or whatever was earlier than that of every version. All that does is date you. But if you just include the general name, like I said, Microsoft Office Suite as an example, then in the mind of the employer, it includes all of the previous versions and the current version. Now, if it gives you a competitive advantage to include some, new type of application or software and to include the version of it, then absolutely do. But for applications and languages that have older versions, you can just use the broader name, okay? Okay, and so I was looking here further into the job description for a senior data scientist. So you can see, how they will list the skill sets that they want to see in a candidate. And then I'm showing here how I incorporate a job description and into a resume. So you'll see at the top, I'm including a title. For the open job market, you'll want to include a title that matches the role that you are seeking. And then here I kind of have a marketing statement and then the introductory paragraph. And then below you can see that I have the technical proficiencies, and they are all written out pretty much for this one. Give you a moment just to kind of take a look at that. Okay, we'll move on. Still in that appetizer section, in addition to the technical skills, you will include a keyword section in your resume. Typically, this section is really talking about hard skills, and typically aside from the technical skills. So here's just a short example of some of the skill sets that you would include. And then this goes back to when I told you we wanted your resume to be search engine optimized. Including a keyword section is really one of the most beneficial areas to help your resume be search engine optimized, because as I told you, no matter where a recruiter or hiring or HR professional, no matter what type of search engine that they are using a Boolean search string of key skill sets and technology that they are looking for in the resume. So this is where it's important not to just use your personal jargon, use what's acceptable in the marketplace, okay? And then this is just a short example of how I might incorporate some of those keywords into an actual document. Okay, so there are many different ways to do this. There's no hard and fast rule. It's just a matter of making sure that what needs to be there is there. Tell your story. Okay, so let's get to the meat of your resume, the main course, and that is the professional experience. Okay, so what we talked about earlier is that your resume needs to go beyond simply just job duties, okay? We want to make sure that you highlight different aspects of what you did, how you did it, but mainly the outcomes, okay? Now, I also said earlier that it is very important not to have just a responsibility or duty or task-based resume. Your resume needs to have accomplishments. That is the most important aspect of your resume, and that those accomplishments be quantifiable if at all possible. So for that, in professional resume writing, we use a construct called the SAR, and it's the acronym for Situation, Action, Results. And this can be applied for most everyone, no matter where you have been employed. Think about a situation, and this can be any type of challenge or just something that you were given to do. What was it? What was your mandate? Okay, what action did you take to meet that challenge, to answer that challenge? And then what was the result? What was the business outcome? You can apply this to every field, every job. Let's look at some of them. We're not going to read all of these in the interest of time, but I just want you to see how someone in different functions answered this question for one of their challenges that they had in their role. Now, you would never include all of this content in your resume. This is merely for developing your content. It's part of that, even your strategy. But going through just this introspective process and analyzing your role and analyzing the challenges that you had and coming up with what was the end business outcome. Sometimes it's something we don't think about on a day-to-day basis, but you didn't just have busy work. You had a purpose in your role. So it kind of takes a little bit of thought to think beyond just the task and look at what was the end result, the business outcome, the greater outcome of what your task was. Okay, let's look at a couple of more examples of this. Okay, and you can see how this person, they started with, okay, this is what I was asked to do. This is how the steps that I went through to meet the challenge. And then they included the quantifiable accomplishments in doing so. I'll give you just a second to read that. Let's look at another from an IT manager. So you could go through this exercise, and then you can even focus on of the content to include in your resume would be, you're going to summarize all of it, really, but you really want to focus on the result with some of the action. Don't focus too much on the how in your resume. The reason why, I'm more interested in the outcome on paper, but the how is the story you tell in your interview. So, excuse me, you can understand why it's so important to have this whole structure. Let's look at one more. Okay, this was a senior data scientist that we asked the same questions. Okay, and it doesn't have to be quite as detailed on paper, as long as you can, detail it in your mind and you can tell this story. Okay, and then this is that same candidate. This is how we implemented in the last two bullet items on this one is how we implemented the results from the SAR question into the resume. Okay, now let's talk briefly about formatting. Again, I told you that your resume doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to look like a technical resume in the Courier font or something. You can get creative. Here's one. Now, you'll see that your resume is really a marketing document. We want to feature the best of the value that you bring to an organization. So you see there's interest all over the resume. We started with the title, a simple introductory statement. This resume has more detail about the specific value. Rather than including that in the professional experience, we chose to add another key section here. And then the key strengths and assets. You can use any subtitle for those keywords. That's essentially what they are. You might use core competencies. I'm sure you've seen a lot of that. Here's another one, kind of a similar tactic here. And let's take a look at one more. And in this one, they chose to mix the areas of expertise with the technology, and that's an option too. So essentially, what we've talked about here today really is making your resume stand out in the competitive job market is really focused around the marriage of your content, the strategy, first of all, the content and formatting for that aesthetically pleasing resume. You want to make sure that your resume kind of pops and really tells your own career story by focusing on what makes you uniquely you, what gives you a competitive advantage by focusing on your quantifiable accomplishments. Okay, and the skills and successes that you have, that you bring to the table. And that's really what is going to make you stand out in the market. Again, that's easier said than done, even with all of this. And sometimes it takes a professional to help you along the way. Lucky you, because you have such a professional to assist you. And through our partnership with TDI, um, when you engage with TDI and engage your resume services, we have a 3-step process that you will use. The first step will be to fill out a profile, and which includes the questionnaire and that SAR example that we talked about. And here's the great part is that you don't have to be the one that takes that SAR and redevelops that content into a powerful, impactful statement. Your professional resume writer is going to do it for you. So you'll have the opportunity to fill out this questionnaire. And again, I think that's a deliverable in and of itself because it really helps you to get clarity on who you are and how you want to tell your story. Next, you will have a call with your professional resume writer. The writer may have questions, you may have questions. We really want to drill down on what makes you uniquely you and your accomplishments that need to come through in your TDI template resume. And then lastly, every aspect of your TDI service, including your resume development, is an interactive process. It's an interactive process with your writer. You can make changes yourself. You can direct your writer to make whatever changes you need until we go from draft to revision and delivery, and final delivery. And that's what I have for you here today. Sierra.
Yes, thank you so much, Erica. So at this time, I'm going to open up the Q&A. If you have any questions that you haven't put in there yet, please put those in there and we will answer them live now. A lot of these are resume questions, so I'm going to defer to you, Erica. This first one here is PDF on par with the doc format as far as ATS is concerned, or is that harming me by using a format that I thought was widely accepted?
As long as your PDF is built off of a Word document, okay? So you can save your Word document as a PDF. There are some challenges when people save a Pages document as a PDF.
Our next question in here, I'm switching careers to data scientist and having several ML portfolios. What would be the best content in my resume telling that I fit for the role?
So it will depend. Again, what you want to look for is your transferable skills. Look at what you're looking your target role and look at what transferable skills are highlighted in those portfolios.
Okay, our next question in here is adding hyperlinks to publications a big no-no. Often that is a major outcome for PhD candidates.
You can include your publications. We typically want the MLA format to find your resume or your publication rather than the hyperlink.
And then where do you suggest putting education in the resume?
It really depends. If you are just getting your education, we would prefer it at the top of the resume. If your education is, more than 10 years old, then you can put it at the end of the resume.
And then what is your suggestion regarding including figures or tables in your resume?
Don't do it unless you're at a C level. That's because your resume won't be ATS friendly and you won't know how to make it ATS friendly. Those tables and will simply render your resume invisible, or it will just be garbled.
About not dating oneself, it is recommended or required to include start date and end dates in employment and education sections, isn't it? Or would that not date me?
You can include your beginning and end dates for employment. We just don't want you to go back more than, say, 15 years. You don't need the dates at that point.
And then how proficient or comfortable should we feel about working with various languages and programs we list? For instance, a handful I feel expertise with, but with some I've maybe done a short course and don't use it all the time.
I would say put yourself in an interview situation. Do you want to be asked to take a test? Do you want to be drilled on that? If you don't feel comfortable enough to answer it in an interview, don't put it on your resume.
And how do you manage creating a resume if someone is currently unemployed?
That's fine too. You just want to show in some way why or not necessarily why, but that you're unemployed and that you're doing more than just being unemployed. So maybe you're doing some volunteer work, maybe you're in an educational program. No employer wants to see that you are stagnant.
And then what if we're transitioning from STEM fields graduate student? How can we reflect the job title like you mentioned?
So the job title is a target job title. Okay. So you can always put the word target. If you're uncomfortable with saying, I'm a data scientist, you can use target.
This next question, how large is the data science part-time cohort? So it varies from cohort to cohort. On average, it's anywhere from 30 to 20 to 40 students in the part-time cohort. And then another question, is TDI open for people outside of the US? You can participate anywhere that you're located. All of our programs are offered online. Another resume question here, again about PDF format. Are files creating using LaTeX usable?
Usable, but only a PDF created from a Microsoft Word document is ideal.
And then what do you do about gaps in experience or from excluding unrelated experience?
So again, no employer wants to see that you've been stagnant. There are, you can write, you were on a sabbatical, personal sabbatical, account for that time in your resume some way.
Right, we have time for maybe one or two more questions. So if you haven't had your question answered yet, if there's anything else you'd like to ask me or Erica, please put that in the Q&A section. I'll give you a minute before, oh, I see one in there. So what does the coding challenge entail? So there are two challenges. There is a data challenge and then there is a coding challenge. So you can select one or the other, whichever one you can do both as well if you want your application to stand out. The data challenge will have a data set there that you have to use and manipulate to answer questions based off of that. The other one is a traditional coding challenge where you have to code in any language of your preference and also answer some questions related to your coding as well, and then upload your code too. It's timed in a sense that you have 72 hours to complete it from the time that you open it. It doesn't take 72 hours to complete it. Most of our students spend a lot less time than that to work on it, but it is timed from the time that you open it, and it does close at that final deadline. So if you were to open it within a couple hours of the deadline, you would only have that time left to complete it. All right, our last question here, what is the ideal format, doc or PDF for a resume?
The ideal format is a doc or PDF created from the Microsoft Word document. You can use both.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Erica, for joining us today. I know our attendees are very excited to learn about all of this resume information. Erica works with us very closely with our resume services here at TDI. So one of the benefits of going through this program is also being able to work with the RiseSmart team and have that great crafted tech resume. So again, thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to submit your applications if you haven't already, and mention this webinar for priority consideration. And thank you everyone so much. Have a great rest of your day.